Don't you love it when you get to see behind the scenes of like your favorite movie or show and how I put things together? Well, today, Adam Breckenridge, our director of coaching, and myself, we're going to pull back the curtain and tell you about our real Enneagram journey and how we were so stuck and so frustrated, but how the Enneagram really helped us to get unstuck and to have a ripple effect in people's lives that it is truly an amazing thing to experience. So, with that being said, I want to introduce to you and bring him on Adam Breckenridge, our director of coaching, who is my dear friend. Hey, Adam, it's so great to have you here.
Beth, so good to be
Hey,
here. I
yeah,
love doing this with you.
I know I was going to say, this is like some of our favorite parts is just to get to hang out together. Um, so, on this episode, we were thinking about like, what have we not done? And
Yeah.
I get to interview a lot of people, but I don't necessarily tell people my own story and journey. And then I thought, well, I don't even think people probably know your story and journey fully.
Mm,
I mean, they
mm.
know you're a type 6, they know I'm a type 9, but there's so much more to it. And so I thought, let's go behind the scenes. Like, let's help them see why we're doing what we're doing
Yeah.
and why we're
Let's
so
get the
passionate.
backstory.
Yeah, exactly. So are you ready to be authentic and real and transparent?
That's all a six wants to be,
Yeah,
right? Let's
that's true.
go. Let's
That's
do it.
true.
Let's do
And I've
this.
spent way too many years trying to understand myself as a type 9 that it would be a waste to not share some of that with people. So, okay. So, we're going to toss questions back and forth. So, for you guys that are listening, I'm going to first start us off and ask Adam some questions. Then he's going to toss it back to me. So, Adam, I'm going to ask you the first question, which is okay, before you discovered the Enneagram, where were you at in life? Like, was life just all like roses and sunshine? Or where were you at in life? And when did the Enneagram like show up? Like, what was going on in your day to day life?
It wasn't roses. It wasn't sunshine and roses. I'll tell you that. I will say this. I'll start here. I remember when I discovered the Enneagram, I had a coach working with me, an Enneagram coach, and he said, welcome to day one of the rest of your life.
Wow.
Um, he was like, once you see these things about yourself, you're never going to be able to unsee this. And so, but let's rewind the clock. So
You know what that sounds
before,
like? That
what's
sounds
that?
like the Matrix. Like, do you want the red pill or the blue pill?
Well,
Like,
I
well, I
definitely
don't
had
think I have a choice now.
exactly right. I was too awake,
Yeah.
and I'm still waking up, to
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
myself, and
it's a journey.
but it was this eye-opening, truly eye-opening experience. So, if you were to rewind, your question was, where was I before that? I was
Yeah.
pastoring in Kansas City. I've got a
Woohoo!
wife. That's right. That's right. And we both have that Kansas City connection.
Yeah, I grew up there. I actually grew up, like, I think 2 miles from the house you guys were in at like, towards
That's
the
right.
end. Yeah.
That's right, that's right, over there in Johnson County. So, I have a wife and 3 girls, as you know, and so we're living in Kansas City. The girls are very little, and we're, 400 miles away from any family or home, so there's a
Mm.
lot of loneliness. Even though we had deep friendships, there's nothing like having family when you have little ones that you can call in a mom or a mother-in-law to come over and help, and or a grandparent, and we just didn't have any of that. So, and I was working a lot, Beth, a whole lot, and I was in an environment that wasn't super healthy. And so, you ask, was it sunshine and roses? It was a lot of anxiety,
Mm.
and I was really anxious. I, was preaching every week, and I was in a church that was large and growing with a lot of demands. I've got all
Mhm.
these demands at home, and I was really filled with a lot of self-doubt and a lot of anxiety in that season of my life.
Yeah.
I was kinda stuck in this pattern where every week I was battling worst case scenario thoughts of,
Mm.
"I'm going to bomb in front of everyone." I've gotta get up here and preach, and I'm like, I'm gonna be exposed. I don't have what it takes to keep up in this fast-paced environment, and, tons of anxiety. And so those were kind of some of the emotions and frustrations that was going on. You can imagine how that impacts all it impacted all of my relationships,
Sure.
you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
I remember my wife saying to me, when you're home, you're not really home, because you're so in your head. And I didn't know at the
Yeah.
time I'm a six,
Right.
yes, I've
Yeah.
got a lot going on up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had no awareness or language for that. I thought this was normal. And
Right.
it is normal for me, but I mean, I thought like I just couldn't see. I just couldn't see. And so yes, that was having a huge impact on the way
Mhm.
my presence was affecting my marriage and work relationships and as I related to my children. And so that's kind of what it was like for me. What about you? Before you discovered
Wow.
the Enneagram, what were some of the challenges that you faced, impacting your relationships, your well-being? Bring me into some of that pre-Enneagram Beth.
Yes. Okay, so we have to go back, let me think about this. We've gotta go back 22 years. So, 2001 is when
Uh-huh.
I got introduced to the Enneagram. So this is before it became popular,
Oh,
the it
yeah.
thing to dive into. I mean, this was way before that.
Uh-huh.
So at the time, I was 26 years old and already married 6 years. So Jeff and I got married at 20, and we already had 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And Jeff was also in seminary at the time. So up till that point, here we got married early. I, as a type 9, I don't even know myself. Like we have this internal fog. And I'm just trying to go along, to get along, please merge, whatever I need to do to make this relationship the best, which of course at the time I didn't know that's not the way to do it. That's the only way I knew to do it. But just like you, I had a lot of anxiety, but it was so different from a type six's anxiety. As a type 9, my anxiety was completely around um, relationships and connection in
Mm.
relationships. So here I'm hyper focused on my relationship with Jeff and trying to make him happy. But then I
Mhm.
always have my head trash, right? So like we all have an inner critic, and my inner critic is saying, you're not good enough, you're not a good enough wife. And these are not the things that Jeff says, but these are the things that I was telling myself. But then with these 2 little kiddos, I'm still telling myself I'm not good enough as a mom, as a wife.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so my 3 part is chiming in, saying, "You're not good enough, you need to do better." My 6 part is just freaking out all the time because it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
What's around the corner? Like, you better be prepared for the next thing." And, my 9 just wants to shut down, which I did quite a bit, honestly, and I lived in this, like, fog all the time. And then my type 1 part would show up. Of course, I don't know any of this at the time, right? But my type 1 part would show up and be really critical, particularly around probably Jeff more than anyone. And then my
Mm.
A part would just kind of get frustrated with the whole family. So all these things were happening, but I didn't know why. And so I felt so confused. I felt so frustrated because all I knew, like you were saying, like the water I swam in, the only thing I knew was to people please. The
Yeah.
only thing I knew was to negate myself, to overlook myself, and to focus on everyone else, and to lose sight of my passions and dreams. And so I kept doing that more and more and more and shutting myself down more and more and more, thinking, oh, well, I'm being this selfless Christian, this selfless wife, selfless mom. I'm giving of myself. But in actuality, it was just harming all of those
Mm.
relationships, but I didn't know it. I was so
Mm.
asleep to myself and causing that narcotization or sleepiness more and more. So, it was a
Yeah.
really tough season, of being always anxious and always
Yep.
exhausted.
Yep. Yep. Man, that sums it up for us too. Pre-Enneagram was that it was a perfect storm of the season of life we were in, kind of like you're saying
Mhm.
with y'all were in a season of life of young married little kids. That's already an anxious, exhausting period of life. But
Oh, yeah.
but to add to the fact that we were sort of drifting through it without any awareness of our inner world and the survival strategies we were using, which are relative to our types, which we didn't know what our types were. We didn't know what the Enneagram was. There was just so much living without awareness and without
Yeah.
tools to navigate. It was like our inner world was dominating us and we didn't even know it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can still picture Jeff and I in our tiny little three-bedroom apartment at the seminary, and I can still remember us just looking at each other like, "Man, I love you so much, and you're my best friend, but boy, this is frustrating. This
Yes.
marriage thing is so confusing. Like, why do we keep
Yes.
getting stuck? Why do we keep having the same fights over and over? Why can't he understand me? Why can't he just uh, do what I would do for someone else. Like, I would do such and such. Why can't he do that back to me? Well, that's because
Mm,
I mean, ultimately, I didn't know this at the time. He's not a type 9. He doesn't see the world that way. But, I was so frustrated. And I know he was too, because what would happen for us is that we would get in like some tension or argument, and I would shut down, back away. And that only felt like abandonment to him, which is his greatest fear.
yeah.
So we just kept going around and around and around with the same cycles, but again, like you said, no tools, no resources, no understanding of why it was
Yeah.
happening. And
Yeah.
so it was truly a season of just being so exhausted,
Yeah.
irritated, um, frustrated, uh, I mean, I'm sure people are listening are like, "Oh my gosh, I totally understand that season," and that's
Mm,
just where we were, and we were actually seeking help at the time, I mean, because we knew how much we loved each other, and we were
mhm.
seeking help, and no one seemed to really be able to bring us the clarity that we were trying to find and trying to understand until a friend of ours who was going through his own season of grief, his counselor gave him a book on the Enneagram. And honestly, what's really interesting is that he didn't really get into the Enneagram. He didn't really read it. He actually gave us the book. He's like, "Hey, my counselor said this would be really helpful. Maybe this would help you guys." And so Jeff took a look at it. But Jeff was in seminary full time and working 30 hours a week as a missionary on a campus, a college campus, plus a full time dad, or at least as much as he could. And so he was just like he skimmed through the book and was like, "Yeah, that's kinda interesting," but that's about all he could do. And I have a reading disability. I am a super slow reader, so I am
Mm,
very choosy on what I read, and typically, I start something, and if it is not, like, really impactful, I'm just like, "Nah, this is too much work." But I just devoured this Enneagram book. Like, it finally opened up so much understanding, so much clarity that I was like, "Oh my gosh, I see myself, like, really for
mm,
the first time." Like, I knew I was a 9 right away when I got to the type 9. I was like, "That is why I struggle the way I struggle. That's why Jeff irritates me," or whatever it was going on. Like, this is gonna be so helpful. And so then we wanted to figure out Jeff. Well, he thought he was a type 8, um, and many years later, we find out he's actually a counterphobic 6. So there was a lot of kinda similarities to it, but so it gave us language for at least what was going on in my life. And I was
yep.
able to talk to Jeff when I was struggling in new ways. Like, he had finally some understanding of why I was so anxious or what was going on with my heart. And of course, this is way back at the very beginning. So it's like me on training wheels. Like, I'm still not used to this, but at least we had direction. At least we knew there was a tool that would give us the clarity that we needed. And if we would just spend time working with this resource and this tool, that we were hoping that eventually we could really grow, not only personally, but grow closer together as well.
Yeah.
What was it
Yeah.
like for you? Like, when did the Enneagram show up in your life? When did it start to kind of really pivot and turn?
So I remember vividly a Saturday where I was in my office in the basement in our house in Johnson County, right down the street from where you grew up. And I had been working all day on a Saturday on a sermon for the next day, and my Monday through Friday was so full of work that I barely touched my sermon through the week. So I kind of
Mhm.
reserved Saturday. So I'm working 7 days a week. I mean, I'm working all the time, and I came up for dinner. Carrie, my wife, texted me, said dinner's ready, and I came up, and she's got um, she has a baby at her ankles, one on her hip, and one on the way.
Wow.
And she is finishing dinner, and she had this moment where, I mean, I'll never forget this, Beth. I come up from the basement and we lock eyes, and her face was the face of fear.
Mhm.
And she said, "I don't recognize you." And it was this really it was a life-changing moment because
Hmm.
she just decided to be courageous enough to tell the truth about what it's like to be on the other side of me.
Hmm.
And so she did it in a non-judgmental, no toxic shame, just, "Adam, this is what I'm experiencing with you. This is what I'm noticing. This is how it's affecting me and our family." And she actually used this phrase where she said, "If something doesn't change, I'm afraid you're not going to make it to 40." Not that I was going to hurt. It
Mhm.
was this, like, you're just going to fall over because you're so exhausted and anxious. That was what
Right.
she was saying.
Right.
So here I am, Beth, 30, early 30s. I'm just stuck because I know something has to change, but I
Mhm.
can't see what needs to change, and therefore I don't know what I need in order to change. You can't
Right.
change what you can't see.
Yep.
And so I'm trying to see myself through her eyes, and I'm waking up to there's a problem here, but I feel very stuck. And so a friend of mine, um, this is such the kindness of God that all worked out this way. But a friend of mine put me in touch with another guy based out of the Louisville area who happens to be an Enneagram coach. And I had never heard of the Enneagram. It was like one of
Mhm.
those Ennea what moments for
Yeah.
me.
Right.
And, and so I contact this person, and I'm like, man, I've never paid for any kind of care. Like, this is going to be an investment. He assures me that it's going to be worth it. So he sends me an assessment. I take this test. I've got a lot of skepticism as I'm taking this assessment, and even like as a seminary trained pastor, I'm filtering all this through like is this thing even check out, and I've got all this, but I take this assessment. It tells me I'm a type 6, and I read the report, and I just feel pinned to the wall by
Wow.
what I'm reading.
Yep.
Then I get on my first typing call with him, and he does this typing session with me, this typing process, which only confirmed what the assessment was telling me. And the best way I can describe, I really don't know how, I'm not trying to be dramatic at all, but the best way I can describe it is it was as if someone reached into my soul and flipped the lights on.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, I have language to put into words what I'm feeling, what's going on in my head, uh, what's going on in my heart, and I really felt known. You know, it's like Psalm 139, where the psalmist says, "Search me and know me, O God."
Mhm.
I felt like God was noodling around in the depths of me, just like it was the most vulnerable I've ever felt. I mean, it's so exposed.
Yeah. Mhm.
So at which is this exhilarating experience. It's like being on a roller coaster. It's simultaneously terrifying and it's
Right.
simultaneously wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I
That's a
mean,
great way of putting it.
it's what it felt like. I felt like, "Whoo, whoo, I'm really exposed here. I'm really being known, and anybody that reads this report is gonna know everything about me."
Yes.
Um, and I felt like, really seen, really understood, which again was vulnerable and scary, but also beautiful and affirming.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting down and having Carrie read the first time Carrie read that report, she just cried and laughed. And she was like, "Oh, this is definitely you." And so our experience was just like yours. It's like, "Okay, well, now we gotta find out what are you?" Like,
Yeah.
"What's your type?" And for our listeners, or viewers, like, Carrie and I are the same type combination as you and Jeff, right? So, we found out she's a type 9 and I'm a type 6, and it just, and then she started seeing the same coach, and then he started working with both of us together, and doing like marriage work. And I mean, all of
Mhm.
a sudden, I hate to describe it like a conversion, but you know what it was. If I were to put it in like neurological terms, it's like it's like everything that we knew about God's love from a left brain perspective, the things I was teaching from on Sunday, the things I was discipling and saying from the pulpit, and the theology that I'd learned and studied and analyzed, and that I believed with my left brain. It's like all of a sudden it was an integrated left brain, right brain experience. Like now we were like experiencing
Mhm.
being known and loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually wondered, like, has anybody ever truly been able to love me? Because has anybody ever actually known me? Like
Yeah. Totally.
I'm just now knowing me, you know?
Yeah.
And and so it was this really, really powerful experience for us. And we did work with our Enneagram coach for, I mean, over a year. We worked with our
Wow.
coach,
Mhm.
which is a game changer for me. So, and then Beth, I want to toss it back to you, but I want to say like that's what led me to find you. I remember after working with my coach, and we still have a relationship, but we kind of ended that coaching relationship. I remember thinking like I've got to find another coach who sees the Enneagram the way I see it, and who can help me like continue to grow.
Yep.
And I remember somehow stumbling across your Instagram page, which was the very like pretty early days of it. It's like this is like 2016, 2015,
Mhm.
2016
Yep.
maybe. And then you and I did a Skype call. So this was like pre-Zoom.
I know. I'm
And
like,
and I
"Snip, what is that?"
Skype, but I remember walking off that call and, getting off that call and calling my wife and saying like, "I found our next Enneagram coach," you know?
Aw.
So yeah, that's what it was like for me. What about you? I mean, I guess you kinda shared your story of it. You guys got the book, and that was sort of your revolutionary moment, right?
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, that because this was 2001, I mean, there were hardly very
Yeah, at that
few
point, there was
I
really hardly
mean
anything.
there was hardly the internet, let alone like, there was no YouTube, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook, there was no, like, smartphones, like, nothing, like, if you wanted to know something, you had to get a book and read, and like I said, I had a reading disability, so I'm a super slow reader, and plus, I didn't realize that my eyes weren't working well together, so they were like my, eye doctor said, "They're like twins that are trying to go off in their own direction or try to read their own way," and so they're not even, like, working together, and so I had these awesome new glasses that had, like, this prism that makes them actually work together, which is amazing, but so here I am, and all I can like, there's no podcasts back then, there's no
Yeah,
I mean, even if there was blogging, the Enneagram was so small back then, they weren't people weren't blogging. So,
yeah.
if I wanted to learn something, I had to literally do it on my own and incorporate it into my everyday life, which I think is why it had such a profound effect on me. I had to work extremely hard to understand the Enneagram because it is a very complex system, especially back then. These books were
Mhm.
like a tough steak, you know, like you're trying you're trying to cut it, and then you're trying to, like, chew it and, like, get it down. Like, I
Yes.
love the Enneagram, and I love geeking out on the Enneagram, but sometimes I'm like, "People, can you just talk about it in a little bit more easy to understand way?" But
Oh,
back
yeah.
then, it wasn't that, and so I had to take my time and really kinda sift through and sort through and learn and then just incorporate it into my everyday life, like, little bit after little bit, and then I also because a lot of these books, well, they weren't Christian, and so they were
Mhm.
using terminology that was definitely a it was different worldview than what we had. And so I said, "Hey, Jeff, you're in seminary. You've got this, theological understanding. Can you help me to frame, this portion in a way that is more aligned with a Christian worldview?" And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's totally da 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 da." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that makes total sense." And so we did that time and time again over the course of years, but, yeah, my journey with the Enneagram, there were no Enneagram coaches back then,
Yeah.
but I am thankful for the way when God brought it into my life and how he captivated my attention. And actually, nines absolutely love the Enneagram because we have
Mm.
this internal fog. And it's like finally something gives us this ability to kind of wipe the fog, you know? But you know how, like, when you're like in the bathroom and there's steam and, like, you wipe your mirror off and you're like, "Hey, I can see myself," and then, like, 5 seconds later,
Yeah,
it's like
fall fogged up.
it's all fogged up again. You're like, okay, well," so the Enneagram helps us to do that, but it's only until we fully understand how to integrate it into our life that it's kinda like us opening the door and it's like some the actual steam gets out so you can start seeing yourself again a little bit more clearly,
Yep.
and but the path that I was on, God was just like, "I'm gonna take you through a very slow process, but one that's actually going to radically transform your life. It's gonna radically transform how you are a wife, how you are a mom, and how you show up in life." But I will say it was a very long journey, longer than
Yeah.
what I see people experiencing today because they can hop on all the podcasts, they can watch the YouTube videos, they can take courses, they can get Enneagram coaches, which I love. That's wonderful. But it was just different, a different path for me. But I think that path allowed me to be who I am today and to
Mhm.
influence everyone because I was so tired of it being so complex and not
Mhm.
Christian that I was like,
Yeah.
once I felt God spurring me on to share it, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this easy to understand, applicable, and from a Christian worldview. And
Mm.
kind of that's where we are today. And we'll kind of get into that. Um, so let's transition. So we were stuck in our personal life and the
Yep.
Enneagram came in, and man, we thought we found something like superb ourselves and how God
Mhm.
created us. But then both of us realized that we were absolutely stuck in our career, our passion, whatever you want to call it. Um, and let's start there. Where were you when the Enneagram came into your life? And then when was the moment of change, and what did that look like?
Yeah. I was pastoring, and as I've already mentioned, personally, I was not okay. I was not doing well, but I was also stuck vocationally
Mm,
because I was in an environment that was also not okay. So it was this thing of like, I'm a six, and I am bringing fear. I'm bringing anxiety with me, but I was also part of a system that was highly anxious,
mhm,
and so my fear that I already have as a just that's just intricate, like tied to my type.
mhm,
That fear was being exaggerated by the environment that I was in, and so I felt very stuck, because here I am a pastor and I'm seminary trained, and I'm miles away from home, and I'm at this church that I helped plant and kind of give my blood, sweat, and tears
mm,
to. But I knew that I wasn't in a place that was healthy for me. I knew that this is not a safe place for me. My body was knowing that my type was showing up in that way, and so I felt very stuck. And here's a place where the Enneagram gave me a real gift because after discovering my type, I actually found courage through the clarity.
mhm.
Um, I began to realize that, you know what? My fear is an invitation to be courageous.
Yeah.
Was it John Wayne, the great, theologian, philosopher John Wayne, who said that, courage is not the opposite of fear. Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway.
Wow. Mhm,
So I just began to realize, you know what? My fear is not fundamentally a handicap to my type, but if I befriend it, it actually gives me a gift. Like it actually leads me into courage.
Yeah.
And so I found the courage to start trusting myself. I found the courage to start trusting what I was knowing in my environment. I found the courage to start telling the truth about things I was noticing in our environment that were not healthy.
Mhm.
I started finding the courage to trust God and the gifts that He had given me. So, do I still struggle with self doubt? Absolutely. That part of me shows up often, I more quickly now can get to a place of trusting the gifts God's given me and who He's made me to be, because I have a language. I have, there's that Dan Siegel philosophy of if you can name it, you can tame it.
Mm.
I think that's Dan Siegel. So now I'm able to like name some stuff and get back into some self control with these things that instead of these things being out of control.
Yeah.
And so that led me on this journey of starting to differentiate in my context and starting to
Mhm.
sort of stand on my own 2 feet and stand within a system and actually point at some things and say, hey, this is a problem, and even point at myself and say, I'm part of this problem, and here's a place where we need to repent and we need to fix this, we need to work on this. And I'll tell you one other thing is that was huge for me is I started to treat myself with more kindness. Like I used to really, I think I knew I was afraid before the Enneagram,
Mhm.
um, but I treated my fear with a whole lot of shame. I just thought,
Sure. Yeah.
men aren't supposed to be afraid, so,
Yeah. Right.
um, and so I really treated myself poorly and with a lot of contempt over being afraid, and that was one of the things in our system that the system I was in really contributed to that as well. And here I am now with the gift of the Enneagram. I started to realize that, hey, I need to actually welcome and befriend this part of myself and treat this part of myself with kindness. Um, and I said that was going to be my last example, but I can think of another. Here's another thing
Yeah,
that
please.
happened. Another thing that happened was I started to notice, Beth, that my loyalty and my dutifulness and my commitment to work hard as a 6, these were gifts that prior to the Enneagram, I had over identified with.
Mm.
And I was using these gifts to survive instead of using them to bless and help others. I was actually using them as a part of my identity, as a part of as a way to survive. So here's what it looked like. My 6 commitment to hard work and dutifulness translated into workaholism,
Oh, yeah.
working all the time, and in the name of duty. I've just got responsibilities, I've got things to do, and, 6s show up with a real commitment to responsibility. So I had over attached to that gift my gift of loyalty and faithfulness, and you can count on me. That really became a codependency for
Mm.
me. And I actually felt like I can't abandon these guys. Like I can't separate from this environment. And what I began to realize as I woke up to myself is, you know what? Um, that's that's really unhealthy. And I
Mm.
think in the name of being faithful to myself and faithful to God and faithful to my family, I actually need to differentiate from this system. So that's what it was like for me vocationally. I was very stuck. I was very scared, and the Enneagram gate started to God through this tool started to give me enough clarity, enough courage to start to pull apart and differentiate and try to figure out like what's my next vocational path? Like where's God
Right.
taking me? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and even that thought is scary, right?
Oh, it was terrifying.
I
It is
mean,
absolutely
you're
terrifying.
you're a dad of these little girls. I mean, yeah, that's terrifying, and just the thought of it just kinda wants to make you stop in your tracks, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, okay, so for me,
Yeah. What about you?
so I was well, let's go way back, okay? We're gonna go back to little Bethy, little girl, um, raised in the '80s and the '90s. So as a type 9, we have this false message inside us, this interpreted childhood message. So either it's been told to us directly or we interpret people's uh, interactions with us in this way. So as a type 9, the message I was interpreting was I should not assert myself.
Mm,
And I remember this one story. I was, uh, probably about 5 years old, so this was probably about 1980. Yes, now you can calculate how old I am. Um, so I was 5 years old, and my dad was an allergist, a doctor, and back in the day, drug reps would not only bring lunches to the doctors, they would bring, like, little trinkets and toys and pens and all sorts of stuff to the doctor's, work environment. So one of the little trinkets they brought were these, um, phone books or, like, what do you call them? Like, you write it's so funny because we don't even have it anymore, but yeah, it's like a phone book that you write people's names in, their phone number in, but it would fit in a shirt pocket, so it's really small, and it was super cheap. I mean, I'm I'm probably not seeing it right in my mind because this was way back, but I remember being, like, uber thin and just the size of a pocket shirt, and it was just, like, cardstock on the outside and just paper on the inside, so, like, it was just really flimsy, they're just trying to, like, get their drug name out there.
mhm.
So, my dad brings, like, 12 of them home because I loved to, like, play office when I was little, so, like, I would, do fun things, so I was like, "Oh, I could what do I wanna do with this?" Well, I had this genius idea at 5 years old that I'm gonna go sell them in my neighborhood for 5 cents. So even back then, I was this little entrepreneur. And so I set out to take these to my neighbors and to sell them. So I went to my across the street to the Edwards house, and Mrs. Edwards was very kind, and she bought one of them for 5 cents. And then I headed to the next house to the right. So if you're looking outside our front door, it's across the street, but to the one to the right. So I head over there, and all of a sudden, my mom, I guess, sees what I'm doing, and she's probably like, "What's happening? Like, why is Beth, in the neighborhood, like going from house to house?" So she calls me back home, and she's a type 6, and there's appropriate ways, and of doing things. Well, in her world, that is like a big no-no to go around the neighborhood
Mm,
selling these things. And so she was probably my mom is a very kind person, probably very kind about it, but she was like, "We do not do that. That is not okay. You need
mm,
to take these back and give them or you need to give the money back to these people." Well, she never said, "Beth, don't assert yourself," but that is the only message I heard. I was
oh,
so
yeah.
embarrassed. I felt so much shame that I would bring shame to my family,
Mm,
and I vowed to myself, "I will never do anything like that again." If it means or unless someone gives me the okay or they encourage me to actually do it. So that started the journey for me as a type 9 to never assert myself first,
mm,
to always check, to always accommodate, to always merge with others. So then when I became a wife at 20 years old, that was still my mentality. Oh, well, Jeff's career is more important than my career or what I want to do in
mm,
life, especially as a nine. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And so I followed Jeff. I encouraged Jeff's career. I supported him, et cetera, which is on one side is a beautiful thing. And it's just all I knew. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And but so then you fast forward, so I'm a pastor's wife, a mom, we're super poor, so I ended up working for the church part-time, just doing things that, yeah, I was gifted at. I was gifted at being an administrative assistant, but it just wasn't my ultimate passion in life, but I
yeah.
didn't know what I wanted, so I guess I'll just do this. But so then you fast forward, my kids are like 16, 17 years old. I all of a sudden had this aha moment that, "Oh, no. My kids are gonna be leaving, and I'm gonna be an empty nester, and I don't know what I wanna do with my life." So, at this time, I was, like, 38, 39, and I'm like, "Okay, I know I'm a 9 because 'cause I've been studying the Enneagram at that point for 15 years. Okay, I know I'm a 9. this is gonna take me a long time, so I better set out now to figure this out, so hopefully by the time they leave for college, I have some idea of what I wanna do with my life. So, what I did to begin with is I started to work as, a personal assistant to a COO of a very large company, and so I started working for her, and here I am, Adam. I am buying groceries for them, I'm cleaning their
Mm,
house, vacuuming, running errands, like, I am just I'm cleaning toilets, like, that was my life, and it was at that time as I started to really ponder on, "Okay, well, what do I wanna do with my life?"
right.
That I saw online this thing called a life coach, and I, like, had never heard of that before, and I was like, "Well, what is that? That kinda sounds interesting." So I started looking into it, and then I thought, "Oh my gosh, all of these years, I have been a pastor's wife, and I have been mentoring and shepherding and guiding women in their own personal walks with God, which is basically coaching." So then I
Yes.
had this thought of, what if I could take this life coaching idea and the Enneagram and, like, mentoring Christian women and, like, smush it all together? And I thought, "Oh my gosh, that is exactly what I wanna do in life." And
Mm,
though so that set me on a journey of figuring this out, but here's the thing, it was extremely challenging to get over that false message of don't assert yourself. So I
mhm.
spent about a month and a half just figuring out on paper how I envisioned this to go, and I gathered information and resources of, okay, like, well, what do life coaches make and how do they become a life coach? So I'm trying to, like, understand all of this and see how I could forge my own path in it. So I got it all figured out, so to speak. I mean, at least the overview. And I'm super nervous because I wanna share this with Jeff.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
you're probably sitting there going, "Jeff is such a nice guy, like, why would you be nervous about that?" Well, you gotta remember, the whole message in my mind is don't assert yourself. Don't
Yeah.
have your own passions, like, that's being selfish. And who do you think you are? So, that's what's going on in my world. So, we sit down at Chewy's restaurant, and I've got my spiral notebook and all my notes and all the things that I've kinda put together, and I've kinda mapped it out, and I even had my Discover, Explore, Become thing going on then, and I was, like,
Nice.
super excited to share it with him, and he's as you know, a type 6, and all he could hear was that I was gonna stop working my part-time job, which was literally helping us make ends meet, and I was just gonna go start this entrepreneur thing and leave us hanging until it became something, and what if it didn't become so he's, like, in his 6 world, like, you know And so all I saw was he didn't believe in me or believe in
Oh,
what
yeah.
my passion but that wasn't it at all, but that's all I saw, and so all I interpreted it as, once again, was don't assert yourself. And so it really messed with me for quite a long time, and I wasn't able to articulate fully why that was such a hard moment for me. I wasn't able to tell him, and he felt bad 'cause, like, he never wants to discourage me, but he's a 6, he's thinking of all things that could happen. And so it took a long time for me to find my passion again, and actually what happened was someone that I was with every day who I worked with, they knew I wanted to be an Enneagram coach, they knew how passionate I was, and I kept trying to, like, introduce them to it, and they were like, "Oh, we're like the Myers-Briggs a little bit better." And I'm like, "Well, okay," so I don't assert myself, I'm not pushy about
Mm.
it. Well, then one day I'm at home looking at Instagram, and all of a sudden I see a picture of an Enneagram book, and I look down and it's this person's post. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, these friends of mine gave me this book. I'm so excited to read it, blah, blah, blah." And I felt so overlooked,
Mm,
so small, so like, nothing I could do would matter. Like, here I've been trying to
mm.
share this with them, and this surge of energy and rage just swelled up within me so much that I literally stood up and I started walking out of the house. I knew as a 9, like, 9s are pretty easygoing, but we will erupt like a volcano every once in the blue moon, and here it was coming. So I just beelined it out of the house, and as I'm going, this inner wave of energy is following me, and I pass Jeff in the kitchen, and his eyes are like, "What's happening?" And I'm like, "Just look at Instagram," and that's, like, all I could say. So I grab my
Mm,
purse and my keys, and I head out the door, and I get in the car, and I just erupt
mm,
in weeping and screaming because it was like the culmination of all these years of feeling overlooked and unimportant, and that my presence doesn't matter, my voice doesn't matter, no one's gonna listen to me. And so I'm driving for like 15 minutes. And if you live in or if you know of Franklin, Tennessee, I drive past the Natchez Trace Bridge and I keep going. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have to turn around at some point. So I'm just gonna turn around. So I'm still like fuming and like I don't know how to ground myself or self-regulate. So I turn around and then all of a sudden, as I'm driving, I felt the Holy Spirit just nudge me and say, "Why are you so angry?" And
mm,
I was like, "Are you kidding me? Did you not see that post? Like, why are you asking me that question? This is an obvious answer. Like, that person has overlooked me time and time again." And then there was quietness, like, this gentle quietness, like this respectful, like giving me some space to breathe. But then it happened again. "No, why are you so angry?" And
mm,
man, it was absolutely clear as day. I said to myself, "I'm angry because I overlook myself, and what I
mm,
permit, I promote." I realize that I'm training people to overlook me because I overlook
mm,
myself. And I realized in that moment I had a choice that I could either continue on that trajectory, that false message trajectory, or I could do what's super hard and I could live out my passion and my calling, which I'd already mapped
mm,
out. And I knew what I needed to do, I knew what I wanted to do, and so I drove back home fully alive, fully present, fully awake for the first real time, even though I've been using the Enneagram
mm,
for all these years, but, like, for the first real time, I knew what I needed to do. So when I got home, I told Jeff, "Hey, I know I've been studying the Enneagram all these years, but I actually wanna go get certified." And so I started researching. I found the place that would work for our budget and the time frame that I had, and I got certified, and then I started your Enneagram coach shortly after that. And it has been such a joy. I am
mm,
so thankful that God woke me up and set me on this trajectory because I have been able to see so many lives transformed. They
yeah,
have so many aha moments, and it's not just because I mean, a lot of people get transformation with things that they're using, but this is accelerated transformation because it is so clear on why
mhm,
you think, feel, and behave, why you're struggling. But not only that, a clearer path of the best path forward for your type. So
mhm,
often we're listening to gurus and leaders, and they're telling a blanket, helpful tip or way, but it's blanket for everyone. Okay, well,
right,
what about for the type 3 or the 6 or the 4? Like, how do we nuance that for them? And that's what I love to do. Like, I love working with people and saying, yeah, that's great that you wanna go in that direction, but let me help you to understand how to see it through your lens and how to get from here to there in a way that's best for you. And so as we do that, as I started Enneagram coaching and watching people's lives transform, it was just like the best thing ever. And then
oh,
people
yeah,
started to ask me, "Do you train people to be coaches?" And that just became a whole thing. And then, yes, we do. And we've trained over 2,500 coaches, Adam, in 30 plus
right,
countries.
that's right,
And so here's what's so awesome about all of this is here I am, a little girl that vowed never to assert myself to hide in the background. And then God, in His grace and His mercy, said, "No, I'm calling you
Mm.
out." And it's going to be hard, but it's going to be so good and so enriching, not just to yourself, but it's gonna have a ripple effect around the world, and I'm like, "What?"
Yes.
And so here, the 9 believes their presence matters, and God said, "No, your presence absolutely does matter." Now, don't get me wrong, I still think that all the time, but His truth is His truth, and I have
Right.
to reorient my heart and my mind to believe in it and to step out in faith every single day, and that's how every type is. Every type has their false messages, every type has to look at what God says is true and walk in that direction for fullness, wholeness, joy, um,
Mhm.
yeah, and just living by His grace and His design for us. So I just want to say, like, it has been such a joy, not just for my own personal growth to have the Enneagram, but to be a part of my clients that I coach, but then to be a trainer of coaches who then go out into the world that people will never meet, and they're blessing
Mm.
those people, and so that ripple effect is just amazing, and so I just I'm always in awe of what God has brought about with all of this,
Yeah.
and it's still a journey, as you know, Adam. We talk a lot
Mhm.
about when I'm stuck, when I'm still having these messages and they're louder than the truth. And I just seem to like I can't get out of it. Um, but you guys, Jeff, the team, they keep reorienting my heart, like renewing my mind, like scripture says, into what has God called me to do, and that is to bless people with astonishing clarity in the gospel so that they can transform their lives from being fearful and scared by their
Mm.
experience with Christ to be full and whole and free. So, anyway,
Yeah.
I know that's a long kind of story of where I kind of came from and where I am today. But I thought, yeah, this is a good time to pull back the curtain and
Yeah.
for people to see behind the scenes and like, because like I think a lot of times people think, oh, you're an Enneagram coach, she's always been like this and like it's easy. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, this
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
every day I have to remind myself, you got to assert yourself. It matters.
That's right.
And, but it does matter. It does matter. And the people that are listening, their life's calling, the way God designed them, it matters. It's important for them to know and to live out that calling. And that's what we're about at Your Enneagram
That's right.
Coach.
That's right. That's right. I love that story, Beth, and I never get tired of hearing it, and that I love that you had that anger moment.
Yeah.
For me, it was this wake up to courage. For
Yep.
you, it was this waking up to anger of,
And
"I'm not
anger,
going
what's
to."
what's interesting is when people hear that, they're like, ooh, anger is bad. No, we're talking about
Yeah.
passion, you know?
Passion.
Yeah.
Passion.
Because Christ was angry. He was
Oh,
passionate
yeah.
about what was right and when people were doing wrong. And so this is passion, that
Yeah.
so you can call it my passion moment. But honestly, it felt like anger, but it really was a
It's
passion
healthy.
moment.
It's
Yeah.
it's healthy anger. I think, it's the best definition of anger that I've ever heard is that anger is energy aroused in the defense of someone or something you love.
Mm, yeah.
So it's like, if someone's trying to harm, your children, they're going to get mother bear. They're going to get mama
Right.
bear. Like they're going to, and the appropriate
Yeah.
emotion is anger,
Yeah.
and fear and all that. But I remember hearing Tim Keller say years ago that there's some things in this world that if they don't make you angry, you're sinning. Like,
Mm,
so it's anger is a good thing, and it is passion. It's this. You had this moment where I think you woke up to loving yourself. Of like,
yeah.
I'm not going to. God loves me. Why don't I love me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm not going to overlook myself anymore.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if
and
Jesus Christ felt that I mattered so much that he would come, live a perfect
yeah,
life that was hard, die, rise again to bring me back in relationship with him, if it mattered that much to him, then why am I not living that truth out within myself? Why don't I
exactly.
own what he sees and what he
Exactly,
feels? So, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that,
Well,
and it's translated into so much transformation for so many people.
Yeah, which is so exciting. I just love doing it all the time. I love training. I love having you on the team that, you're just constantly with our coaches, supporting them, encouraging them, making sure they have the resources they need. We love because we know that what we're doing, that how we support them has that ripple effect.
That's right.
And there's just no greater joy than to hear what coaches are seeing and experiencing with the people that they're coaching. It's just really
Yeah.
quite amazing. Well, guys, we hope that this has been a very helpful, insightful episode for you, us pulling back the curtains and saying, hey, we're just like you. We get stuck, we needed hope, and God gave us a tool that has really helped us. Well, join us in the next episode as we take one more step further in seeing what coaching is like, because I'm going to show you a real coaching session, an authentic coaching session with a type 9. And then we're going to go into type 8, 7, 6, all the way down to type 1 over the next 9 weeks. So join us next time for an authentic coaching experience. You're going to love it. And remember, the Enneagram reveals your need for Jesus, not your need to work harder. It's the gospel that transforms us. Thanks for joining us, guys. Bye bye.